Hello YouTubers, this is my server farm. This isn't a review or a presentation as such of these vintage PCs. Rather, I'm marking 10 years of service. It's for prosperity really. I bought these PCs 10 years ago. They've been running all that time, doing sterling work. But a few errors are creeping in. I don't think the errors are software related. There's nothing showing in the error logs. I think it might be down to possibly corrupting RAM or something else a bit more major. Either way, I might be replacing one or two of these machines. So I thought I'd make this video just to show it as it stands now, after 10 years of non-stop service. It also shows that older vintage PCs can still do useful work. Anyway, with all that in mind, let's get on to a short overall description. The two computers on the left are domain controllers. They're Windows 2000 based. The one on the extreme right is a Linux based web server, and the two matching Compaqs, middle and on the right, are project PCs. They've done a variety of things over the years. A brief description of the network is probably in order here. There are two subnets. Downstream is an open subnet, and there are public terminals and a Wi-Fi point attached to that subnet. It's also where the DMZ is and where the web server is located. Upstream is a second subnet, and that is where all the business terminals are, and the two left computers on the shelf there are the domain controllers for the business subnet. Other things they do are to serve as file servers. The public terminals are fairly interesting. I remastered Linux, specifically PC Linux OS, into a kiosk type OS, very locked down. It runs off a USB key. That warrants a YouTube video in its own right, and I'll come back to that. The web server on the extreme right and the two computers next to it aren't anything fancy. They're just Compaq Deskpros, ENSFF models to be precise. I think they're Pentium 3 733 MHz machines. One of them might be a Celeron. They don't have much RAM, I think 256 or 512, but they don't need much. A bit more about the web server. That's the computer on the extreme right. It's running Linux SUSE, I've heard various pronunciations over the years, 10.1, which is old, but it works very well. I've had no need to upgrade it. It doesn't have many applications. It does have Apache Web Server, obviously. Apache Web Server is running 5 sites for me. All of personal project stuff, nothing mission critical. The two matching Compaqs are project computers really. They've done various things over the years. They've held file server backups, they've held website file backups, they've held various remastered Linux distros that I've done, loads of personal data files, but really I've consolidated those functions or got rid of them, so they've been turned off for a few years now, so they don't do much of anything. They are interesting machines. They tend to have a bit of a cult following these days, and it's not hard to see why. When they came out, they were fairly desirable, not so much for their speed, but their utility. They were small-ish, toolless access. You could easily open them up and do stuff without having to use any screwdrivers. And the bit I really like, which seems to be a little utilised, is the fact that they are actually towers. People use them horizontally. I've stacked them vertically, as you can see, and they work very well like that. They are designed to do that as well. The way the vents are positioned, you can see at the bottom the intake vent is a scoop to capture air that is rising upwards, and the grills on the top expel that air. It works very well. Okay, a bit more about the PCs on the extreme left. They are Compaq Ipaq mini towers. They have similar processing power to the three computers on the right hand side, but they have convection cooling, which means they run quietly. This was a huge attraction to office workers and people working behind receptions and the like. But it also meant they were desirable to people who wanted home servers because they were so quiet. But they don't run headless. They have to have the keyboard plugged in when they boot up. Some people said this is an oversight in the design of the BIOS. I've heard they're designed to be like that deliberately because they were made for offices and not specifically for server duties. You can work around this. There are a couple of options, but because I have a KVM, this has never been a problem for me. So they run quietly. I just wish I had 5 of them rather than 2. The software side of things, the 2 servers run Windows 2000 Service Pack 4. Windows 2000, among those in the industry, is seen as extremely reliable. It's very stable and lightweight, well, more so than XP anyway. It's probably the most stable version of NT. A bit about the hardware. They have Celeron 500 MHz CPUs, 256 megabytes of RAM. They originally came with 1 hard drive and 1 CD-ROM in each machine. The CD-ROMs are laptop-based CD-ROMs. They're very thin. I took the CD-ROMs out and put in a second hard drive in each PC. The power supply can take it. It's not a problem. Why did I do this? Well, as well as being domain controllers for the business network, the one on the left being the primary domain controller, the one on the right being the backup domain controller, or secondary domain controller, they also perform file server duties, and I wanted to have a lot of redundancy. So each server has 2 hard drives and performs internal backups, and backups across the network to each other. It seems over the top, but the data it holds is, well, mission critical. It's work data and personal data, but the work data is the most important, and I need backups that aren't more than 24 hours old. So it's cyclical. Every day a hard drive will get a copy of the network folder, and the following day another hard drive will get a copy of the network folder, and so on until it repeats. That way I'll have a copy never more than a day old. So that's pretty much it. That's 2 subnets, 2 Wi-Fi points, various public terminals, a bunch of business terminals, several switches, whole bunch of cable, being served by old vintage computers, 3 of which have been left on 24/7 for 10 years, and only now are a couple of errors creeping in. If that isn't testament to vintage PCs being useful today, I don't know what is. And that's the web server using SUSE 10.1, which is the computer on the extreme right. You can see a bit more of the air intake there. And that's the domain controller, the primary domain controller with 2 hard drives squeezed into the left hand server up there. And that's the secondary domain controller, also with 2 hard drives squeezed into the second PC on the left. My server farm. Until next time, bye for now.